Hi, welcome back. I would like to share something a little bit different with you all today. I would like to discuss and demonstrate the pelvic diaphragmatic breath. Now, some of you may have heard it referred to as pelvic diaphragmatic rhythm or the reverse Kegel. And there are a few reasons why I want to share this with you. One is I do want to stress how important the breath is and the involvement of the pelvic diaphragm in the breath to my Achilles tendon rupture rehab. And that is because if you can't breathe, you can't move. Somebody said that quote. I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, but it's not mine, but it's so true. And what I've been noticing with my rehab is all the movements and just everything that I'm doing involves and depends on my breath. We've talked about TATT breath, abdominal diaphragmatic breath, and the benefits that those breaths can give us. But I haven't really talked a lot about how the pelvic diaphragm is involved in the breath. So I'll definitely will do that today. And another reason why I want to share this topic with you is because what I've seen over the years of treating pelvic health dysfunctions and as well offering my pelvic health workshops, there's a common belief out there that if your pelvic floor muscles are weak and ineffective and you leak urine, let's say you're sneezing, coughing, and you leak a little bit or a lot, there's common belief that you need to strengthen, right? Muscles are weak, they're not holding or they're not stopping the flow of urine, so let's strengthen, let's tighten, let's activate. And so lots of Kegels are being performed and other exercises. And what's happening is we're actually creating, or potentially you can create more tension and more tightness. Now, just because a muscle is weak, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's loose. So you can have extremely weak and ineffective pelvic floor muscles, but at the same time they can also be very tight and lots of tension. Just think of any other muscle in the body. We need it to be strong, but we don't need it to be constantly activated all the time. Or else, when we need it to function, as in the pelvic floor muscles, when we need them to work, they're not going to work for us because they're too fatigued. All right, so for a healthy, functioning pelvic floor, we need, first and foremost, number one, we need to be aware of the area of the pelvic floor. We need to know how to release and relax the pelvic floor. We need to know what the pelvic diaphragmatic rhythm is with the breath. And then later on, we can learn about control and activation and strengthening. But that comes later. So today, let's explore the floor. Let's have fun. So if you can, if you have a couple blocks or even a stool or something that you can sit on with your feet out to the side and the thighs open, this is a modification of malasana in yoga or garland pose. This is a really nice position to become aware of the pelvic floor and to really feel this pelvic diaphragmatic rhythm that we're going to explore in a moment. And if it's more comfortable, you can sit in a chair and just have your legs apart, and then preferably your feet on top of some blocks or books or something, so that your knees are just even a little bit higher than your hips. Or you can do the toilet meditation, I like to call it. So you can even do this sitting on the toilet with your feet up on blocks or something. Okay, so let's just become aware of the pelvic floor and the bony prominences. So just feel weight shift right to left and just feel the sit bones, or the ischial tuberosities, the two bony prominences on right and left. And then the pubic bone is the bone right in the front here. So that pubic bone, if you can just imagine the pubic bone and then the two sit bones, that forms a triangle. And that's your urogenital triangle, which houses the vaginal opening and the urethral opening. And you can just Google, anatomy of the pelvis or the pelvic floor, and you'll get all kinds of great illustrations, and they'll all be labeled. And then I want you just to feel, so you've got the two sit bones that you're feeling on your blocks or your chair, and then run your hand sort of down your sacrum, the triangle bone at the back, and just feel, keep going, and you'll feel the tailbone. I think most of us know where the tailbone is, or the coccyx. So just feel that, and then the tailbone and the two sit bones, that's your anal triangle, which houses the anus. And so if you can just imagine those two triangles, and that muscles span, across those bony prominences, like a hammock or a sling, and that's your pelvic diaphragm. So again, you can Google the muscles of the pelvic floor, and you'll have all kinds of great illustrations with labels. So you can close your eyes if you like, elbows inside the thighs if that's comfortable, hands in a prayer position, drawing the shoulder blades sort of down away from the ears. And let's go into abdominal pelvic diaphragmatic breath, which actually is, you don't have to do anything. I just want you to watch and to observe the natural rhythm of the breath, the natural rhythm of the diaphragms, the respiratory diaphragm, the pelvic diaphragm. And when you inhale, as the respiratory diaphragm descends downwards, the belly will naturally come forward and down. And then I want you to pay attention to the pelvic diaphragm when you inhale. So don't do anything, don't hold, don't try to lift, don't try to push, just breathe and watch. What our normal diaphragmatic, pelvic diaphragmatic rhythm is, when we inhale, the diaphragm descends down, just like the respiratory diaphragm. When you exhale, they naturally recoil back up. So you inhale, just naturally, don't take a deep breath, just natural inhalation, relax, release, and they descend. Now, if you come forward, you can grab onto the ankles, thumbs facing forward if that's comfortable for you, and watch the diaphragm, the pelvic diaphragm. Actually watch. And you can see that hammock or that sling expanding. So it's almost like when you inhale, it's almost like the pubic bone in the front comes further away from the tailbone in the back. As the pelvic diaphragm descends to the earth. Relax your neck, your jaw, your shoulders. All right, so another really great position to explore the pelvic diaphragmatic breath and to really release those pelvic floor muscles is extended child's pose. So big toes touching, heels and knees wide apart as you feel comfortable. Now I have a blanket roll underneath the ankles, underneath the tops of the feet because of this boot cast here. I have a bit of a modification. And then I'll take a blanket fold, another one, and place it between my calves and my thighs. Just because of some of the issues that I'm having from my Achilles. And then you just walk the hands forward, sinking those sit bones back in towards the heels. And I love these two positions. The first one we just did, Malasana, and now extended child's pose, Balasana. Because you can actually watch visually your pelvic floor. So when you are inhaling, you can feel the expansion of the pelvic diaphragm. When you exhale, it recoils back to its natural resting position. And again, just watching and allowing that pubic bone to it almost feels a sensation of the pubic bone moving a little more forward away from the tailbone when you inhale. Don't actually move the pelvis, don't do anything. But just a sense of an expansion between the two endpoints of the pubic bone and the tailbone. With that hammock descending downwards with the inhalation. And going into any anxiety that you may have when you release or let go, especially if you do have issues with leaking, you're going to want to hold because you're afraid to leak. So it can be quite scary actually, and you can create some anxiety with this sensation of just letting go. So that's why sometimes it's nice to do on the toilet in case you do leak. Also noticing the respiratory diaphragm descending downwards, so the belly reaches down towards the earth as you inhale. So find a rhythm of both pelvic and respiratory diaphragms. All right, and then we have Supta Baddha Konasana, or reclined cobblers. So I've got a 3-tiered blanket system here going on, and you can use a bolster as well, but just going to support myself down, bring blocks underneath my thighs, the soles of my feet are together, well, the sole of one foot in the boot of another. And just ensuring that you've got support underneath the thighs so you're not just hanging there on the joint and the ligaments. Wiggling in, and this is a beautiful, beautiful position, as you can see, to open up through the chest and provide space in the belly, in the pelvic area. So again, another one of my favorite positions to explore the pelvic diaphragmatic breath. And one thing I didn't mention in in the other two positions, which I should have, we talked about the pubic bone and the tailbone sort of expanding away from each other as you inhale, and the pelvic hammock, the pelvic diaphragm descends down. But I also want you to have that sense of the sit bones, the ischial tuberosities, widening and expanding as you inhale. So the whole pelvic diaphragm, as you inhale, sort of it descends and expands front to back, out to both sides. Very similar to when we talk about Ujjayi breath, right? And we talk about the respiratory diaphragm as it descends and expanding and widening through the rib cage. When we always say expand into both sides and forward into the back, well, it's the same thing with our pelvic diaphragm. Expanding into all directions and dimensions. So I quite often like to tell my clients and participants to place one hand on the belly, one hand on the pelvic floor, so that you can feel the rhythm of the breath, again, without trying to change anything or do anything. Just feeling the diaphragms descend as you inhale. And I do invite you to explore this natural rhythm. Many of you may have been taught, or you may be doing the opposite. You may have been taught to take a breath in and pull up. And I have actually heard, some instruction, actually people saying to inhale and pull in the diaphragm, the pelvic floor muscles as you inhale. And that is not the natural rhythm that we function at, that our pelvic diaphragm actually moves in. So I do invite you to explore the natural rhythm. Inhale, descending downwards, both diaphragms. Exhale, recoiling. And as we become more advanced, and when you have one-on-one supervision with a pelvic health specialist, ideally, then you can start with a small engagement of the pelvic floor muscles with the exhalation. But honestly, don't worry about that quite yet, even though I know you want to. Really focus on releasing and allowing and getting out of your own way. Hope you enjoyed this segment. Namaste. See you next time.
For more information on what I do and how I do it, and articles that I write, please visit my website at PhysioYoga.ca, and that will also tell you where I'm at, offering workshops and classes and speaking at conferences and teacher trainings. And on Twitter and Instagram, you can follow me at Prosco Yoga. On Facebook, you can like my page, Prosco Physio Yoga Therapy, and I like to post some really interesting articles and videos of other resources and people that I respect.